Hi, welcome to Inside the Moms Club, where being a mom is the coolest place to be. Here in the Moms Club, we believe that what embarrasses you now will make a great story later. And let's face it, you don't laugh sometimes, you're gonna cry. Join us in having a good laugh together. I'm Monica Samuels. You are now inside the Moms Club, your private destination for all things mom. Welcome, ladies. Welcome to Inside the Moms Club. I'm Monica Samuels, your host, and I'm here with my co-host, Julie Orchid. Hey, Julie.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. So, Julie and I spent a little time in Florida together recently, and you left the day before I did. And so I was left alone to my own devices, which what would people normally do if they were alone at the beach? Go shopping.
Monica goes shopping.
Yeah, so I went shopping all the day after I didn't go back to the beach. I went shopping.
Yeah.
And on that, now I'm going to share my story because it was a little
traumatic,
disheartening for me. I went into a bathing suit store, and there was a huge display at the front. And the salesperson runs up to the front, and she said, "These bathing suits are amazing. They are one size fits all, and they have just been amazing." And I said, "Well, on me, that would truly be amazing." And she nodded her head and said yes. So I wasn't going to take that.
You marched right in there?
I tried one on, and I bought it.
Right.
Because I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of saying, "Oh yeah, that was not a good thing." But now I wear it to get a good suntan because it exposes more of my skin than anything else.
Well, I'm going to say that all.
You're never going to
see all.
Yeah, I will say
the key word.
It does. Yeah, one size. She was actually right about it. One size. It doesn't fit all in a way that you'd want to be seen in public, but.
Oh, it's comical when people says one size fits all.
Yeah.
Really.
It did stretch over it does totally kind of fit my body. So it's like, it's.
All right.
So anyway, but I feel like this one size fits all thing is,
for the birds.
Not great.
Yeah.
But it also reminds me of the bathing suit my husband bought me once. He went to Palm Beach and he came back with a string bikini for me, and I could fit it in the palm of my hand. No joke. So I was just threatened to wear it just to show him. But anyway, well, now that we're back, are we still going to do what we talked about doing, which is taking guitar lessons?
Well, the fall is going to bring some exciting stuff, and we are going to follow up with that. I'm pretty convinced that we need to get it done. I've decided you don't have to be perfect. It can be private because I can't hold a tune to save my life. But if it brings like joy and healing and it's kind of like a journal entry, I think we should do it. I mean, there is a recital involved.
What?
Yeah.
You didn't tell me about that.
Oh,
because I was going to ask you.
Surprises.
I was going to ask you if you would consider switching to the banjo.
No.
I just think that's kind of a cool instrument.
Yeah, I'm not sure how soothing it's going to be, but we do have a friend that plays an instrument.
That is true.
Yeah.
And you say this is healing?
The fiddle?
You feel like music is healing, and she plays the fiddle, and I have heard her in rehearsal once. Have you heard her in rehearsal?
Sure.
Did you find that healing?
I find it brave to learn such a great instrument. Yeah.
It is. It gets a little squeaky. Well, okay, so, but I do find that brave. And I think it's cool. I'm going to give you a true confession here. I did take guitar in 7th grade.
Oh, so you're going to be better?
I can play Ode to Joy on the guitar already.
God, I feel pressure
And
already.
the night they drove Old Dixie down, which for some reason was the song our teacher decided we should all sing. I don't really know why. But
no, there's something about the guitar that brings some type of, peace. And I could use a lot of that in my life.
Oh, we will. So we're ready. Yeah. Can you sing? You can't sing.
No, God, no.
I think we should go on the road. I'm a very ambitious person, And I'm a perfectionist too.
Oh my gosh! All right, Monica. Maybe
if we could do a duet,
okay.
We could go. Hey, Mom's Club.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm going to be carrying.
We do our show on the road. When we take this to the stage,
Yeah.
We'll be singing too.
Sure.
I'm excited, Julie.
I mean, people might feel sorry for us and listen. I don't know.
And I'll wear that bathing suit too. So that'll really show. That'll be great. I'm very excited. Well, we have just the person to help us. We need to write a few songs for this show, too, I imagine.
Right.
So we are very fortunate to have with us today an author, two-time TEDx speaker, a singer, songwriter, and a coach. She was born with a rare neurological condition called hydrocephalus, and through that had to survive 10 brain surgery, but it inspired her, and now she makes it her mission to save the world one song at a time. Moms, please welcome Emma G. Welcome to the Moms Club. Emma.
Why, thank you.
I'm sure you'll be there to see our first performance. No.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see you guys rock out on the banjo or whatever you decide to rock out.
Yeah, no, wouldn't that be novel to rock out on a banjo? Are there many people that can do that? I mean, that'd be, if I can do that, that's...
Yeah.
I just always thought that was a cool instrument. Well, anyway, I'll do the
makes me feel like
I'll
the
do the
sky's the
guitar
limit.
if you makes you happy.
Yeah.
We'll do
how
the
she-
guitar. Well, so how did you? Now you had all of these surgeries as a child, but how did you find your passion in music? Like, what? Tell us a little bit your background, the story of all of that you went through, and how you transitioned into this great music career.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I think. So I was born with my condition. So, I don't know what life was like without having hydrocephalus. But, I was born and raised in New Zealand. My mother is from Erie, Pennsylvania. My father was from Fiji. My grandfather was from Iran. My grandmother's from Norway. And because I think of the culmination of that wide range of ethnicities, music was something that was very instrumental, excuse the pun, in how I connected with my family, connected with my community, so on and so forth. But specifically as it pertains to, being a 10-year-old, even a 5-year-old who's had brain surgery and, subsequently bullied and struggled with academics, and just normal neurological function. Music was always kind of my security blanket, if you will. It was my love language. It still is. It's the way that I have been able to use the security blanket of creativity and creative expression in a way that kind of blankets my, those vulnerable truths that I think a lot of us want to communicate about, but aren't quite sure how to do safely or, without judgment. So, by the time I was 5, I decided that I wanted to be a pop star. But I also wanted to do more than just that. I'm not making this up. I wrote down a list on my 5th birthday. I wanted to be a rock star, a mother, a teacher, a counselor, and a fashion designer.
Oh my gosh!
Wow.
I was a ridiculous. I think when you're young and you have quite literally seen how close you have come to death, I think it sort of forced me to want to, not take a day for granted. So I wanted to do all these things. And I found that music kind of looked after a lot of those buckets for me, because music helps me to connect with people. It helps me to connect with young people and older folk. It helps me to, help myself through songwriting. It helps me to, just communicate and connect. So, that was kind of how I stumbled onto it. And then it just evolved from there. By the time I was 15, I'd written over 500 songs. By the time I was 21, that was even more. And now here I am. I've been a full-time musician for the last 8.5 years, even through a pandemic.
Wow.
Yeah. So
did you start playing an instrument when you were 5, or how did you start in singing, or what was your...
So I was born singing, and I decided I wanted to take violin. That was my first instrument. I hated it. It hurt my neck, hurt my chin. It was not fun for me. So I moved over to the piano, where I had an amazing piano teacher, Anne-Marie Valion, in my small hometown of Raglan, New Zealand. And that kind of evolved into taking a year of guitar lessons as well.
Yay.
In the 7th grade. So there we go. We have that in common.
Oh, yeah. Well, we also have the violin in common, and I totally agree with you. That was the worst experience of my life. That was struggle. I mean, it's beautiful. Those that can do it, it's like I'm very impressed. But yeah.
So awkward. But so being a musician, it was a lot easier for me to carry a guitar with me than it was to lug my piano around. This was back in the 90s when keyboards weren't quite as light as they are these days. So yeah, I that's pretty much how the evolution of instrumentation. I moved to the States back in 2015, and I established my career here as a performer with predominantly guitar. And I've played practically every day of my life for the past 25 years.
Wow.
Maybe even 30 years. Yeah, for sure.
So Emma, in my past life, I was a nurse. So I have a question for you because you look amazing, and I want to know, like, how do you accomplish this on a daily basis? How are you feeling? Because a lot of people, what you've done is remarkable, and to be able to find something that would kind of pull you out, and because having those types of surgeries and being a little child, it can be depressing at times. And so to have this, thank you for sharing your gift and doing this. And I would like to know how you're feeling and what's going on in your life right now in that aspect.
Thank you for the roses. I really appreciate that. It's a weird thing, really, because, I recognize that hydrocephalus, it's not the same condition for everybody. In fact, the Hydrocephalus Association of America is just up the road from me up here in Rockville, Maryland, literally a 10-minute drive. So I've had the opportunity to work with other teenagers who have this condition, from around the country, as well as I think we had one girl from Tonga, I want to say. And so I very much am aware that hydrocephalus looks and feels differently to everybody.
Sure.
And it's a multifaceted answer, because I think when you tell people, oh, I've had 10 brain surgeries, they look at their lives and think, oh my gosh, there's no way I could do that. But it's all I've ever known.
Right.
I was 4 months old when I was diagnosed. I had my first brain surgery when I was 4 months old. How can I know any different? No. It's like complaining about having to go to the bathroom however many times a day. It just is what it is. But I think as I've, as a young person going through that, one thing I have to very much pay respect to is my mother, who raised me by herself. My father was in Fiji for my entire life. And, she worked as a counselor herself. So she was very, very intent on making sure that I never saw my struggles as a wall.
Right.
That I was able to see it as an obstacle, sure, but obstacles are there to be conquered. Right. And so with the power of words, with the power of, self actualization, with the power of meditation, with the power of cognitive reframing, also through lyric writing predominantly. But, I think that was one of the things that really helped me to navigate those specific traumas, which then coincidentally, of course, led on to giving me tools to overcome other traumas that unfortunately a lot of young people, especially in 2023, undergo rather. And of course, the traumas that unfortunately an increasing a number of young women endure as well.
That's a really good point that she brings up, and her mom being a really strong individual teaching her about women.
That's what I think. So many cases, it's mothers are so like that. They are the foundation of keeping kids going in these kind of situations. And going back to that, as far as being a child with an illness that you're dealing with, the situation you're dealing with, kids are not always the nicest to other kids, even in the most perfect situation. But kids that are suffering from things that kids can't even relate to. Because now I go back to when I was a child, and I'll never forget this. I'll live with this my whole life. And I didn't do any of this, but some other kids did. And there was a girl in our class who had cancer, who lost her hair, of course, and had to wear a wig. And some kids ran and pulled it off her head and made fun of her. Yeah. And later on, she died. And I can tell you that I will never forget how awful they were bullying a kid who was sick and who ultimately did die. I mean, that was horrible. So kids that go through, something like what you were dealing with, or just bullying in general, it's tough. I mean, and so thank goodness for your mother to keep you looking to the future and saying, you know what, let that go. This is not the important stuff.
Yeah. First of all, I'm so sorry to hear about your friend. That's horrendous. But I think, I've done a little bit of research into this. A lot of the bullying that kids undergo, a lot of the bullying that young people do, I think it's really easy for us to shrug off as, kids will be kids. But what we fail to recognize a lot of the time, I think, is that the kids that are bullying often have their own traumas that are not being dealt with either. And so, as much as I was dealing with my things as a result of being called Frankenstein, being called freak, being called a number of colorful names because of the color of my skin, that in and of itself was bad enough, but you also need to recognize that there are some other reasons why these kids are being the ones who are bullying. And so I think as opposed to supporting young people figuring out how to deal with things with their fists or whatever, there are just some much more creative ways, more effective ways for us to deal with those situations that help both the bully and the bullied.
Yeah, that's really strong.
Well, that's what I love. Something that you do, when I mentioned in the intro that you're a coach. So you do coaching with kids to songwriting to kind of draw them out and connect better with their parents, have the parents connect with the kids and vice versa. So how does that work? I've seen your website, and actually, where can they find? Like, if a parent's listening right now, if a mom's listening, it's like, I think music and songwriting, maybe this is the way to get through to my kid who's struggling right now. Right. Where do they find you? Remind us where your website is and where they can.
Sure. It's very simple. Simply emmagmusic.com, or if you Google Emma G or Emma G Music, a whole list of options
like Mary Poppins.
And it looks amazing. So can you go through the process? So I'm a mom whose kid I was just not relating to right now, or they seem to be bullied, or they're troubled by something, but I can't get through to them right now. And I think I'm not going to go the traditional, I'm going to put them in the therapist couch. If I call you, what's your process and how do you go about
what's
connecting
the secret
with that
sauce
kid?
that you say to these kids that get them to tell you everything? Like this
and write a beautiful song at the end. I mean, we don't always get that. So how does it work?
So that's a good question. And I first want to recognize that there is no one way for every child. I gained my teaching qualifications in New Zealand, which is, a westernized country, but it also is deeply rooted in Indigenous culture, Maori, and the Pacifica culture. And so one of the principles that I stick to a lot when I'm teaching or coaching is the principle of you teach the child where they're at, not where you want them to be. And so one of the things that I always reiterate to my clients is that their story, their trauma is their story and their trauma. And that when they're working with me, it's a completely judgment-free zone. Everything we work together, they are safe of judgment from me. They're safe of laughter. They're safe from, from any ridicule whatsoever. But that also means that they need to be safe from judgment, ridicule, and laughter of themselves at themselves.
Ah, yeah.
Because I think that's that's a big part of where our young people kind of trip over. Now, especially since I hate to bring this up because it seems so overly talked about to the point where I'm over it. But, the pandemic, let's be real, didn't just affect young people, Gen Z, negatively in so many ways, but it forced this generation to find alternative methods of communication through social media, for example. And so when you're being raised, or when you're raising a child in a world of isolation where social connection is happening virtually as opposed to in person, you now have these scary algorithms that are feeding our children certain things, and you can't connect with your child. Music and songwriting, and the way that I work with these young people, it's I have to be very cognizant of all of those parts. So that was a long-winded way of saying the way that I work with young people is that I first establish that I am not your teacher, I'm not your therapist, I am not your adult figure. How I position myself is, yes, as a coach, but I want them to recognize me as their big sister, their auntie, their cool, musician friend who they're jamming with, whatever.
Yeah.
And together we're going to explore their mental and emotional and social and neurological health using the lens of songwriting. Because I've established that we don't have that power dynamic, that feels safer for them to open up to me. Once that is established, I then reiterate, yes, this is a safe space. And so anything you say is judgment-free, also from yourself, fantastic. And then, the way that I dig into whatever issues are going on for them, it looks different for every teenager, but a lot of it is just down to listening. One of the overwhelming pieces of feedback I get from the young people I work with is that they spend so much time trying to be heard and trying to be understood. But again, we're raising a generation in front of TikTok and Instagram. They don't know yet how to communicate with themselves, let alone with somebody else. So by just letting them listen, using music to stimulate parts of their brain that may fire off some feeling or some, verbiage, can be really helpful. And then I just listen. And then from there, we start doing this exercise called word vomit. Word vomit then turns into, simplifying the overwhelm into bite-sized themes. Then we attack each theme and create songs from it.
What have you seen them do with the final product? Have any of them performed it on, and it's on TikTok, or what has been some of your most memorable students that you've worked with? What have they done with the finished product?
So some of them have certainly done, filmed themselves singing a cappella. Some of them have found backing tracks on YouTube or whatever, and created, whatever reels and, posts. A lot of the time, what actually happens, remember, I one of the things that they say to me often is that they just don't feel like they're being heard.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, that's from their parents and their teachers and even their friends. So a lot of the time, especially when I'm working with schools, performing in front of their peers and in front of their families has been huge for them.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
I've got I had one kid last year rather, who wrote this gorgeous piece called "My Feelings Are Important," and it was literally a song to her parents, whom she felt often sort of dismissed her thoughts and ideas and feelings, and you know, giving her the ability to write that out in a song and then sing it for them. From there, believe it or not, you know, it led the way to a lot of beautiful conversations with them, and she's doing a lot better with regards to their relationship, which
That's
is really
great.
beautiful.
So another thing that you have right now is you've got a project. I guess you release a song a month based on. Is that? I mean,
Yeah,
it's very
It's
ambitious.
true. It's
Yes,
true. I read it. and
Yeah.
so it must be
so
true.
So this month is drug and alcohol addiction. Is that right?
Correct.
Can you
Yep.
sing a few bars of the drug and alcohol addiction song? What's that? I don't want to put you on the spot here, but we'd love to hear
I love
it. I'm sure.
I love it. So yes, I'm releasing a single a month. After last year when I wrote a song a day for 30 days straight. This year I'm doing something a little bit different.
not gonna do that.
I'm not normal, Julie. It's okay.
I was like, we're not going to do
Music is
that,
my
but
love
okay.
language. What can But yeah, but the songs I'm releasing this year are songs that I wrote either in my teenage years or in my early 20s. Because I feel I'm a really big believer in, again, this goes back to my teaching qualifications, walking the walk and leading by example, as opposed to just talking the talk. You know, I've been doing this stuff for my entire life. So the song for Alcohol and Drug Awareness Month, Addiction Awareness Month, is called Addicted to a Dream. It is inspired by Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue's autobiography, The Heroin Diaries, and sort of touches on addictive behavior, drug abuse, and, you know, giving yourself permission to, whilst, you know, we recognize those parts of ourselves, those darker parts of ourselves, it is possible to wake up from the dream. So the a cappella version.
Okay.
We're ready. We promise not
You
to.
got me addicted to a dream that could never be. You're a danger. Oi, I haven't. You have to hit that. You're a danger to love and a heartache to lay. Addicted to a dream that could never be. You're the sweetest poison. I have not lost.
You've got a crowd in here that just loves it.
Yeah. I was like, I promise we won't join in. So
Very
you're
nice.
in a
Yeah.
safe place.
Yeah, and we won't be singing it either. But that's amazing. So
Thank you.
That's this month. Next month is depression, which I'm sure is not like an upbeat song, or is it?
No.
I wouldn't think.
It is not.
It's okay, but it's an important issue. It's an
You've got
important issue.
in November, homeless youth. So you've got some really, some interesting, very important subjects that each month. So I think that's great. That is awesome.
Well, thank you. I think it's important, I think, for us to recognize that, you know, again, trauma looks different on everybody, but also we often ascribe one trauma per person. You know, oh, you're addicted to alcohol or drugs. That is now your identity. Or, oh, you've been sexually assaulted. That is now your identity. Or, oh, you've got, depression. That is now your identity. And young people in general, but in my experience and with the conversations I've had with the multitudes of young people I've worked with in the last 18 years that I've been teaching and coaching for, it's really important that I recognize in the work that I do with them that these, we all endure so much. We are multifaceted, people. And so, yes, I have a song for, drug and alcohol addiction because I'm sorry, I'm human. I have not only lost people to drug and alcohol addiction, but I've also struggled with it myself. I was diagnosed with depression at the age of 12 after my second assault. And there are many young people, male and female, who also have endured those traumas. Depression, same thing. Homelessness, obviously. There's a huge number of young people who are unhoused. But there's more to them than that.
Yeah.
And I also want to recognize, yes, I'm releasing these singles to honor these awareness months, but just because I was unhoused for a year doesn't also mean I was really strong for a year. And that I also, was able to recognize the good in people for that year. And, there's so much, I'm a big believer that, we can't truly enjoy the joys of life unless we have seen the depths of darkness.
Sure.
I often talk,
Emma,
Yeah.
I think it's really critical, not only as a mom, but everybody has issues, and that if you talk about it, it kind of loses its power over you. And that's kind of what I feel like you're doing for teenagers. I mean, anything in your work, you know what I mean? All of these subjects that you're talking about. So I know all the moms appreciate you talking about maybe some of the stuff that is being, stuffed down and that they can't express it. So your work is critically important.
Well, it is. And I love also what you just were saying, that it's multifaceted. Every one of people sort of put things in a box and put a stigma on it.
Right.
Oh, you're depressed. So basically what I was saying, this song, depression looks this way. This is all it is. And we're just going to talk about that.
Right.
But that's not true. And so that's helpful too. So we just absolutely love what you're doing. It is amazing. And like you said, you're going to change the world one song at a time. I absolutely believe that's true. I totally believe it. Well, there's some other women that believe it too. And that is our Zoomer moms who are going to come and ask a few questions. So welcome, Zoomer moms. Welcome to the Moms Club. Okay, welcome, ladies. I know you have a million questions for the amazing Emma G. So let's start with Helen, who is from Arlington, Virginia. Welcome, Helen. Tell us a little about yourself, and you have some questions for Emma.
Hi, Emma. How are you today?
I'm
nice
wonderful.
to be here with you. I've got a newly turned 12-year-old daughter, and nice to know that you're basically right across the bridge from me in DC. So
brace yourself.
I'm sorry?
I said brace yourself.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, do you have children?
I do not. I do not.
Okay.
I am 30. I'm almost 35. And I got into youth work. I got into teaching when I was 17, teaching vocals, teaching from as young as 6 up to the age of 81. And that led me into working for the YMCA, and then teaching at universities and things. I've worked with hundreds of kids, but that's a really great point. I don't have children, so I do not understand obviously there are parts to motherhood that I would take my hat off to you for having to deal with that I don't have to deal with.
Well, and I was just curious because you're so, I can't even think of what the word is, but so it seems like you're a mother. I mean, you don't have to give birth to be a mother, as they say. And so obviously these children that you've coached and helped mean a great deal to you. Do you have opportunities like for young people to maybe who you have helped to come back and help you do what you're doing, like to magnify your mission? Are there any like local things that you're doing in this area? I'm always looking for service projects and things for our middle schoolers to do. And I think it would be interesting, for them to see kind of, that and their parents that, it's not just, punishments and discipline. You can kind of work things out through your work with music and other outlets that can certainly help succeed and thrive.
That's a great question. So I don't have any specific projects that I've held up to this date where young people I've worked with historically can come back and help facilitate an event, mostly because a lot of the, when I established youth coaching, I only had like one person in the DMV who I was working with. A lot of them were from over, in other states, virtually. So having them all come back to DC would be a little bit unrealistic. Mm-hmm. However, I'm actually working on a project for next year where I will be visiting different states around the country and running community-based workshops with an opportunity for them to either perform or have their songs performed that evening at a venue, a very well-known venue. Watch this space, in their city or town. So that's kind of one thing. Another thing that I'm also have been flirting with the idea of in the back of my mind is my fiance, soon to be husband, is a Krav Maga self-defense instructor, and he's working on a summer camp series for next year, which I'd be interested in partnering with him on to do. So I'd like to offer just some alternative, ways of self-expression beyond self-protection. So but I'm totally open if you are looking to collaborate on things, and to anybody who's listening to this, if you have ideas or you want me to come in to your community center or youth group and run a workshop, I've been doing that for a long time. I do a lot of in-school workshops and community center workshops for all ages. I just haven't done a repeat sort of reprise performance of past students.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm glad to know that, and I look forward to hearing more about both the things that are coming up for next year. And I'm already following you on Instagram, so
yeah, there you go. You got a new follower.
You might be hearing from me.
I'm sure you will. Actually, I love what your fiance is doing too. That's that kind of self-expression that's constructive through self-defense in a constructive way. I like that. That sounds like a positive thing.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do a mother-daughter
Absolutely. Well, he does that a lot actually, and he's really big on using my music in the warm-ups and cool-downs. So I'm good with that.
Nice.
I think that's good. Well, and that's also, you're right, Helen. That's very empowering to know.
Yeah.
Like for the kids that are getting bullied or feel like I've got no way to defend myself. At least you feel empowered.
You went through,
I'm not sure what Monica's suggesting, but
I don't want you to resort. No. Not resorting to that. Just feeling empowered, feeling good about yourself, feeling like I have the ability to take on whatever comes my way.
Love it.
Yeah. So that's my message.
In this day and age, you have to. I mean, you can. I was walking the dog, and I went on a different route this morning, and I called him and I said, just FYI, there's these guys hanging out in this truck, and maybe circle down this street whenever you're on your way home, because if you're not aware of your situation and your circumstances, everybody's got earbuds in and are on their phone. They're just not paying attention, and that's one of my big worries is just
know your surroundings.
I hear you.
I'll plug a couple of things really quickly then. If you are interested in what he does, he has a book called Self-Defense, Why Even Bother? Mostly because he saw that I had written 2 books, which, the first one being My Life, My Songs, My Healing, the second being Reconnect with Your Teenager. And he was like, oh, if she can do it, I'm going to do it too. So we're both authors.
Yeah, that's good. Love that.
Competitive couple. I do like that.
Yeah, good team.
I call it co-opetition.
Yeah,
cooperative.
It is. I like that. That's very good. Jennifer, welcome to the Moms Club. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and you have a question for Emma.
I do. Hello. I'm from Austin, Texas. I have 2 children. One is she a child? She just turned 22, which is hard to believe. My younger child is still in high school, so he's still home with us. And actually, this year I have a child from Norway living with us. So we have an exchange student. So I kind of have 3 kids right now. And I can tell you, it's so interesting. I come from a creative family, but we are not musical, like not even a little teeny tiny musical. You do not want to hear us sing. Yeah. Our dog was super famous for every time we sang happy birthday, it would whine and cry like, please stop. So anyway, so you don't want us to sing happy birthday. So, we are more visually creative, and I think it's so interesting how creativity of all sorts does lead to incredible healing, and it allows people to develop different identities. As you say, like we're all way more than one thing. And when you get to when one identity is like feeling ostracized or put upon or hurt, it's really helpful to go operate in another space. And so for me, that safe space when I was growing up was the art studio always. And, but music is unique. And I'm sad I really haven't had a chance to experience this, but it really does. Like there's so much research about what it does to neural pathways, and it really does open up healing. It opens up your emotional healing and your physical healing in ways that is really unique. I would love to know if you have any stories about, you're living the story yourself, having described everything you've been through, and what an incredible story it is to see you now as such an empowered and inspired person. But do you have stories of kids who've come out on the other side? Because honestly, I think with the epidemic of mental health that we're all dealing with right now, it's never been a more important time for people to connect with their creative side, whatever it is. It might not be music. It could be art. It could be sport. It could be, as you say, self-defense.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think, again, healing, self-discovery, it looks different to everybody. And it's not a quick work, as as we're all aware. Therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, psychotherapy, none of it is quick work. You don't just wake up and go, oh, I'm fixed.
Yeah.
Thanks, whatever. But one of the things that I particularly love about what I do, often in conjunction with therapy, is that, let's say, for example, you have a fantastic counseling session, psychotherapy session, whatever, or coaching session if you're just doing the songwriting coaching. If you only stuck with the coaching, therapy, or counseling, because Gen Z's brains, for a number of reasons, where, we're raising our children on television, on 3-minute of TikTok video, very, very, like the attention span of young people is so short these days. Not to say we can't retrain it back to where we could be, but at the moment we're not quite there. So when you've got that short attention span as it is, and they've just gone through a 45 to 60-minute therapy session, what are the chances are that they're going to leave that therapy session and remember the key objectives and key lessons from that session? Pretty slim to none. They're already overwhelmed with their thoughts, feelings, and ideas. They're already trying to figure out how to express themselves, let alone hold on to, make sense of, and put into practice the lessons that they've learned from their therapist or counselor. So what I like to do is I take those lessons, whether it's the conversations that I have with them or the conversations they have with their therapist or counselor, and create like literal mantra songs of overcoming. Like move over Bonnie Raitt, move over like Whitney Houston, move over Pink. This is your song that you've written that it encompasses all of the life lessons that you have come to conclusions of by yourself. And I think that's really important because, I'm sure, Jennifer, when you were a teenager going through whatever muck you were going through, yes, you turned to art, but there was that one song at least that you listened to.
Yeah.
For sure.
What was that song?
Oh, I had Cat Stevens was
Cat
one.
Stevens.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's great.
Okay, so not only were those the words of Cat Stevens of Bob Marley, but those people were actually a different gender to you.
Yeah.
And so can you imagine how much more empowering it would be for you to listen to your own song that you'd written, encompassing your life lessons and your words of wisdom? I heard a saying last year that I keep referring back to, which is, to pray is to talk to God, to meditate is to listen. The way that I say things is that to songwrite is to bring that manifestation of that conversation into something tangible that we can hold on to, remember.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, Have I seen this in first person? Abso-freaking-lutely. But it is a slow work. I've got one student who, when she came to me, this was in 2020, she was 17 in her last year of isolated high school. And she had super high anxiety, was, had body dysmorphia issues. We wrote an entire album that she now listens back to and is like, oh yeah, I remember that. And this is the lesson that I learned from that. Or the chorus of this song reminds me to love myself. Or the chorus of this song reminds me not to listen to the intrusive thoughts in my mind. Oh, and by the way, that album helped her get into the Liverpool Performing Arts Academy in Liverpool, obviously, working with Paul McCartney. So these things happen. Her than some people, but others. It's literally, like I said, my client from last year, who wrote this beautiful song that opened up the floodgates to have happy, healthy, constructive conversation with her parents for the first time in a long time for her.
That is so great and so inspiring. And I'm pretty sure that someday, next time every time you listen to the Grammys from now on, listen for I want to give a special shout out and thank you to my instructor, Emma G. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for by the way, just if Julie and I get good enough, just to strum in the background, is there a possibility maybe we could do a little gig with you someday? I'm trying to get her something other than the silly recital that she wants me to be in. No, that would be amazing. You are amazing. It has been. This has gone by way too fast. Can you share with us where again they can find you on social media, or where for their children who want to do some songwriting?
For sure. So the easiest way is to head to my website, emmagmusic.com. If you Google Emma G or Emma G Music, chances are my face will show up. I am on all social media at Emma G Music, except my Facebook page got hacked a year ago. So I'm now on TikTok and Facebook as Emma G Speaks.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much. This has been tremendous.
The key takeaway is that this is inspired. Super tangible.
I want to write a song myself. I think I might.
You have a lot on your plate.
I've got a lot to do. I'm writing a book. Now I'm going to write a song. Well, thank you so much.
Go ahead, Monica.
And
Monica, I think you should write a song about bathing suits that fit in your hand.
But not on the banjo. Please, not on the banjo.
Well, you know what? That is a trauma for me, so maybe I should.
Maybe you should.
I think I will. I'm going to start on that right after this. Well, you can find us on social media as well. We're at Inside the Moms Club on Instagram, TikTok, and our website is insidethemomsclub.com. Well, Julie, this hour, it went by so fast again. It always does.
Yeah.
And we learned so much. I'm just, like I said, I'm so inspired.
We're headed to a guitar shop right after this.
We are. I already got my guitar stand, so now I just get
good Lord. All right,
my
of course.
guitar to go with it. So I'm very excited. Well, we'll be back next time with celebrities and extraordinary moms just like you. Thank you so much for joining us, as we know your me time is precious and valuable. We appreciate so much you moms out there spending it with us. We have a motto here in the Moms Club. If you don't laugh sometimes, you're gonna cry. Nobody likes to cry. So keep laughing, ladies. We'll see you next time inside the Moms Club.